Hi there, it's Kristy-Lee here, and welcome to this week's episode of HR for Small Business. I hope you're doing well and have had a fabulous week since our last episode. Now, welcome. It's great to have you here. Today, we are talking about something that might be a little bit of a scary statistic. Today, we are talking about why 46% of new hires fail. Almost half of new employees that we hire in our businesses are not a successful hire. We're going to unpack what that means and what you can do about it to make sure you're on the right side of that statistic in just a moment. Now, thank you so much for joining me here. Now, before I jump in, I do just want to let you know I am using an app called StreamYard to go live here today. We're live on our Facebook group, HR Support for Australian Businesses, as well as over on our LinkedIn page and, of course, our YouTube channel. Now, if you are joining us on Facebook and you would like to ask a question or make a comment or join the conversation, you will just need to give StreamYard permission to use your name. Otherwise, all I see is Facebook user, which makes it a bit tricky to answer your question directly. So just click that little button there and that'll give StreamYard permission to show your name if you do have a question or a comment that you would like to make. Now, for those of you who I haven't met, hi there, my name's Kristy-Lee. I'm the director and founder of a consultancy practice called the Footprint Group, where we work with small to medium-sized businesses on all things HR in their business. I'm also the CEO of People Powered HR, which is an online HR community specifically for small to medium-sized businesses. I'm the host of the People Powered Business podcast, and I also co-host the Grow Your Influence podcast with the wonderful leadership expert, Juliet Robinson. Now, today we're talking about hiring, and it is something that I've had just an ounce of experience in. I landed my first gig, if you like, in recruitment back in 1999. Now, like most of us, I didn't plan to start a career in recruitment. I fell into that career. I'd actually studied forensic psychology at uni at that point in time. So that was not even in my realm of possibilities of the things I thought I would end up doing. But just as it happens, and it so often happens this way in our careers, I'd gone for a position with a recruiter and they said, hey, why don't you join our team instead? And I was planning to travel in a year's time. I thought, yeah, that'll be a great, little fill-in job. And well, the rest, as they say, is history. So I have literally been involved in tens of thousands of hires throughout that time. And interestingly, when I started that career, I very quickly realized that yes, I have an intuition about people. I have a good understanding of people. A psych background absolutely helps with that. And I could read people and understand who would be a great fit for different roles. What I quickly realized was that I could give you the best possible person in the world for your job. But if everything that happens from that point onwards is either broken or non-existent, it's a total waste of time. It's never going to be a great long-term solution. The candidate will leave, you'll fire them, it just won't work out. And that's what led me down the path of exploring human resources further and studying my master's in that field. And it's why I'm so passionate about getting this right for small to medium-sized businesses. Because every time you churn a role in your business, it costs you a lot of money. It also costs you time, energy, sleepless nights, stress, the team being happy, all the other things that can get impacted when we churn a role in our business. And whilst for corporates, there may be like a level that they can kind of deal with it. They've got teams of people to deal with it, literally, HR teams, recruitment teams, all of those things. We don't have that in small to medium-sized businesses. It's usually us as the business owner. Sometimes our general manager, office manager, operations manager, the team leader will get involved. But really, we don't have the capacity for that kind of churn without it really heavily impacting our businesses. So for the last 10 years, I've dedicated my time working with, understanding, and really learning about small to medium-sized businesses. So I know how they tick and how it works when you've got people in those businesses. And so this statistic is frightening, right? 46% of new hires fail. Let's unpack what that means and why I thought it was a really important conversation to have today. Now, the research and the studies that this stat comes out of have been around for a number of years, and they've been retested and tested, and it remains high. There'll be different studies with slightly different percentages, but it remains around that sort of figure. And when they say fail, what does that actually mean? Well, in the case of this research study, what failure means is that 18 months in, the person wasn't in the role anymore and usually not in the business anymore. So it was an 18-month threshold that they were looking at to determine whether the hire had been successful. Because let's face it, none of us hire someone in our business hoping that they only last a year. I don't know about you, but that's certainly never my intention. When we bring someone in a permanent capacity into our business, we want at least a solid couple of years out of them. So 18 months was this threshold that they looked at, and they found that 46% of new hires didn't make it. Didn't make it. Now, I don't want any of you to be on the wrong side of that statistic. And I thought it was a really important conversation to have today in this particular episode of HR for Small Business, because I know the market is really tough at the moment if you are hiring. And we recently did a poll inside the Facebook group, HR Support for Australian Businesses, and 93% of respondents said they were actively hiring or looking to start hiring in the coming months. So a lot of you are hiring right now. And I know a lot of the businesses I'm working with and the businesses I'm talking to are finding hiring a little bit tougher than normal. The reality is we're in a market at the moment that is just characterized with a lot of change from the employee's perspective. A lot of people are making changes to their careers for lots of reasons, and I'll unpack that in a moment. And so it is tough. There are less applicants for the roles that we recruit for than there are positions. So we're fighting it out for few applicants, and especially few quality applicants. If you're in the trades industry, any trade, in any location, but I am seeing Melbourne really tough right now, actually. But any trade, any location, you guys have had it tough for ages. Chartered accountants, professional services, lawyers, all finding it incredibly difficult and have for some time. This is not a new problem for them. But for the rest of the roles where you're used to getting inundated with applicants for a customer service position or an admin position, even those roles right now, it is harder and harder to find great applicants. And in those markets where it is tougher, we tend to sometimes not make the best hiring choices because we're desperate. We're hiring out of desperation. I heard it referred to as panic hiring recently, where we're just so stretched and so stressed and so overworked and under-resourced, we just hire someone. And often we know in that moment it's not the best decision. We're like picking the best from a bad bunch, which is never the right answer. Quite often you're much better off holding out for the right person than you are making that panic hiring decision. And you see this become a real issue in these kind of markets. And I know from experience, because when I started my recruitment career back in 99, I was recruiting in the middle of Sydney. I was recruiting in Sydney at the time when the Olympics were about to be on. And of course, like as it happens, the Olympics creates a lot of jobs. And so there was a lack of applicants in the market, in the geographic location I was recruiting in. So I've seen this kind of tough market before, where then when I went regional, we had the opposite market. We would like drown in resumes every time a job was advertised. So I've seen the distinction between the two different types of markets and not having the choice on your hands when you're hiring. So it is a particularly important time to be mindful of what you need to do to avoid being on the wrong side of that statistic. Because the thing I know to be absolutely true after doing this for more than 20 years is this: you cannot outrun a bad hire. You simply cannot. If you've made the wrong hiring decision, if you've hired the wrong person, it's been the wrong role, it's not the right time, if all the things aren't in place, it is bound for disaster. They will not be there long term. They will not be engaged. They may be frustrating to manage. They may be disengaged. A whole range of things can happen. But once you've made the wrong decision, there is no magic fix. There's no magic wand. There's no turning it around. It's quite often some form of an exit strategy that you need to look at. And that's not fun, and that creates churn. So what can you do proactively to ensure you're not on the wrong side of this statistic, to ensure that your new hires are successful? The good news is it's actually not as complicated and as overwhelming as it might seem. And I know recruitment is stressful for business owners and for leaders and managers. Making sure you're making the right decision, getting it right, it is really can be quite stressful, but it doesn't need to be. There are really three key ingredients to making the right hiring choices. Now, of course, they all require a little bit of detail, a little bit of knowledge, intel, time, and attention, as they should. But if you get these three things right, you'll have a successful recruitment campaign. Now, interestingly, and this may be surprising to some of you, it actually doesn't start with the person that you're hiring. That's the third ingredient. It's very important, but without these other two, as I said before, you can have the best person in the world for the job, but if the other things aren't in place, If they're broken, if they're non-existent, if they're not right, it's all going to fall apart. So the first key ingredient you have to make the right hiring decision is you have to craft the right role. Everything starts with creating the right position. Now, I know when you're under-resourced and overworked, that can feel like something you don't want to spend the time doing, but I guarantee you, spending time getting the role crafted correctly makes all the difference when it comes to making the right hiring choices. So this means spending time doing the clean slate exercise, which we've discussed before, making sure you've got your structure right, that this role fits where it needs to fit, that you've crafted the position description, that you are absolutely clear about what this role is responsible for, what its duties are, who it reports to, its scope. All of those things need to be clear in your mind, because if you start recruiting without being 1,000% clear on those things, you're going to find the wrong person because you're not clear about what you're looking for, right? What are the essential criteria for the role? What are the deal breakers? What would be the things that would be nice to have if we had the choice? Everything starts with the right role. Once you've got the right role crafted, then you need to consider the timing. Now, this, I guess, is something I appreciate that not everyone has the luxury of picking, but it does make an impact, because once this person gets into your business, if the timing is off, if you're not going to be able to onboard them properly, to give them a proper orientation, to make sure they're trained, skilled up in their role, to give them the support that every new employee needs, then you're going to have an issue and they may very well exit very quickly or not perform because they haven't been given the support that they need. So timing comes down to, yes, of course, you're going to have to hire when it is busy, totally, but crafting the time to also onboard, orientate, train, and develop properly. So don't hire and start someone in the middle of your busiest 3 weeks of the year when you know every client wants everything done, or when you're in the middle of a huge project, or when you're already short-staffed because you've got 3 people on leave and you've got to do all the things. Be mindful of the timing, particularly for those first, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks that they're with you. Even if you can just get the timing right for the first week, that will be a real gift for you. You've got the right role, you've picked the right timing. Now we look at the right person. And this comes back and comes really down to being very deliberate and strategic in your recruitment campaign. Being clear, as I said, about what are the essential criteria for this role, and not deviating from those out of desperation or because you really like the person and maybe you'll try and make it fit and squeeze them in. No, you're clear on the role. You're therefore clear on what is essential from this person when you go to the recruitment campaign. And you need to craft a really clever, strategic, thorough recruitment campaign. You need to ask the right interview questions. You need to be doing your background checking and your reference checking. You need to ensure that they've got the skills, the licenses, the qualifications. You need to have a thorough recruitment process. Your best friend's neighbor, someone that was referred to you, the first resume that pops onto your desk, none of those are the right answers. You need to have a thorough and diligent recruitment process to make sure that you're hiring the right person. Now, if you can wrap all those 3 things together, if you craft the right role, if you hire at the right time, and specifically start them at the right time, and you find the right person by being strategic, deliberate, and having a thorough recruitment process, you will have a successful candidate on your hands. You will have a successful hire. It is not something that is easy or quick, I get it, but it is so worth the time and energy and attention that you give it, because otherwise, where will your time, energy, and attention be spent? Refilling the role over and over and over again, putting out fires with your team who are all overworked and burnt out, calling the customers who aren't getting responded to because you're short-staffed. Where would you rather spend your time, energy, and attention? Getting it right or fixing the problem when you get it wrong? I think I know the answer for me. So although it is a scary statistic, it is a real statistic, but there are things that you can do as a business owner, as a leader or a manager to make sure that you can get it right and make awesome hiring decisions every single time. I really hope that's been a valuable episode of HR for Small Business today, and thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back again next week for a brand new episode. If there is anything you'd love me to cover, please pop a comment below and I'll be happy to cover it for you in a future episode. In the meantime, have a fabulous week and I'll see you again next Friday.